Guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tatiana. I am a mentor and business coach for women that want to start their own stationery businesses, and I also have my very own stationery business called the Stationery Muse, and I really have a good time on here sharing with you guys all of the lessons and my own personal business journey as I go along. And right now I'm doing a series on here to kind of get you excited for what is planner season, but also even if you want to create a journal and you're ready to launch these things, we're going to be talking all about this. And make sure you subscribe to my channel if you are interested in videos like this. I post videos every week to inspire and encourage you to get started with your business ideas that you have, and I would love to see you here. So my last video, I actually shared with you guys some of the first questions you need to be asking yourselves when you are deciding like, hey, I'm ready to launch a planner, I'm ready to launch a notebook. These are the questions you want to ask yourself before you check out this video. So if you missed that first one, make sure you go check that one out first. I'll make sure to link it in the cards for you. And now today we're going to be talking about kind of the next phase of this, which is really starting to get into the meat of the product itself. And it's important to really just think about all of the little details and how you want it laid out and different things like that. So we're going to talk about some of those things today because it may not be something you might have thought about just yet. And if you are deciding like, oh my gosh, I want to create a planner, I'm ready to launch it for this upcoming planner season, then time is of the essence. No matter when you see this video, you definitely want to start to take into account some of these really important things. So let's get right into it. The first thing, whether it is a planner or journal, you have to know, what do you want this thing to look like? What type of binding specifically do you want it to have? What type of cover do you want it to have? So really just in general, how is it going to look? Maybe no one has touched it yet, but just from looking at it, what are some of the features that you're going to be including on this? And so I have a couple of different just options. This may not even really be all of them, or might not include something you were thinking about, but these are some different binding options to consider. And before I show y'all, I have to just give my little disclaimer. Always remember, when you are first getting started, do not feel like you need to do all of the things right now. You don't need to do everything right now. So you don't need to be like, okay, I'm coming out with this journal, or I'm coming out with this self-care planner, and I'm gonna make sure I can cater to everybody. So I'm gonna have all of these different styles and ways that people can get it. It's going to make it very confusing, not only for your customers, it's going to make it overwhelming for you, and it just makes it really hard to really track the progress and to have anything to progress to when you kind of have everything at once. So I really suggest picking one binding style, and then you can always expand later. Many planner companies do this. I've seen this time and time again. I personally have done this for my own business. You try one style and you can always branch out and try other things later. So this is a pretty popular style to start. This is our disc bound, of course. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because if you are familiar with the planner community, stationery community, you have seen all of these, but it's something to start considering if you haven't already when you're thinking about how you want yours to look. So this is really nice. This way they can switch out the discs. I would say this is probably one of the more customizable options, along with if you decide to do more of like a, I don't really know what, ring bound, I guess would be the right way to say this, ring bound. So this is an A5 binder. They come in different sizes. You could do personal size, which is a lot smaller. You could do A6. There's different sizes of these as well, but it's important to kind of figure out what you're trying to do. These to me are kind of, if you want people to have the option to pull pages out, customize, do different things and such, this would probably be the way to go because they have more flexibility with what they can do. And they can always get like add-ons, they can use things they have and things like that. Another style that I really love, and actually this is the style of my own planner, is what is wire bound. Wire bound, and even another one is spiral bound. Now those are completely different. I don't actually have a spiral here for you guys, which is kind of interesting. Everything that I have in here is wire. Like even this notebook with my notes for the video is wire bound. And so basically when you see these two loops together, sometimes it's called double loop or twin loop or wire O. Those are all kind of the same thing, and it basically just means it's these double loops together that are kind of grouped together to create this wire. And so when you open it up, you kind of get this feel of the binding. And this to me was the easiest binding option for me to do, the most cost effective for me to do when I decided to launch my planner. So that was my one choice that I decided to start with. So not saying you need to do that, but just something to consider as well. Think about like what is going to be the most cost effective. What things do you already have in your home, especially if you're deciding to do it handmade, or if you're working with a company, what binding options do they have? What is going to be the most affordable for you? You know, especially if cost is going to be a factor, which for most business owners it is. So these are things to really consider and think about, and it's important. So we've kind of talked about wire bound. I'll insert a picture of what spiral bound is just in case you want to see it. It's more of a single wire that goes around versus the double, and it's definitely a different finish as far as you can basically spin spiral completely around, whereas wire you kind of have to do a little bit of maneuvering. If you've ever had one, then you definitely know they're all like this. There's a little bit of a maneuvering that needs to take place to kind of shift the pages sometimes, but they are similar in some ways. And so then another style, and kind of the final one I'm going to talk about, is what I call perfect bound. I've seen it called case bound. There's different lingo and things you can use, but this is another style like this. And so I actually use this style for my Live, Love, Inspire notebooks, this perfect bound size. It's just very sleek of a finish, and what's nice about it is everything is just kind of in here. There's no coils or anything to get in your way. You can kind of just lay it flat and write it out. And even within this style, there's different kinds. So you could actually get a lay flat book. This one is not lay flat, but you could have something like this. This one is a hardcover version of that, and it's a little bit more closer to like a lay flat, something like that. So, you know, you gotta kind of consider the binding, and then even more so considering the cover that will be paired with that. So with the wire a lot of times you will see hardcover typically. There are different types of covers you can do, but that's a lot of the times what I'll see with that wire spiral typically might be hardcover as well, but I have also seen it sometimes with more of like a plastic cover or like a really thick cardstock cover. The perfect bound, that one can kind of come in hardcover. It could be in more of like this is a thick cardstock type of finish as well. It's got like a really nice little smooth matte finish on there. And what was the other style I just had, y'all? I lost. Oh, and then the this is gonna definitely be a little bit different, because even with this you can change up these binders. So you might not sell the binder, you might just sell the parts that go in there. But this is something to consider. And then of course with disc bound, the color of the discs, and then this style of cover, this is kind of more of a really heavy plastic material, but you might even do like a laminated cardstock similar to like Happy Planner or something like that. So there are a ton of options when it comes to the look of it, but the important part is you really want to figure that out, is basically what I'm saying. Okay, so the second thing that's really important about this is the size, and this is just going to be really quick to touch on, because depending on what you're doing, there are already some standard sizes within the market. So it really, first, once you know that binding style, then it'll be kind of easy to figure out what size. And really, again, think back to when I was talking to you guys about who is using this. I'm going to keep referring back to that first video because it's really important. When you know who is using it, then you will know, okay, does this person want a letter size notebook or planner? Do they want something a little more compact that they can toss in their bag? Is it going to be on their bedside? Like, what are the uses of this? Really think about that, and that will help you decide what is a good size for your planner. So my planner is a 7 by 9.5 size. 6 by 9 is a standard one. Half letter, 8.5 by 5.5. Yeah, half letter, 8.5 by 5.5. You could do something even smaller than that. You could do full letter size, so 8.5 by 11. It really is just going to depend on, again, who is using this. So really think about that. And sometimes your size will be dictated for you. So for example, with like disc bound, there are kind of like some standard sizes with the punches and things like that, to where you might just have like a certain amount of discs. So like I know Happy Planner, they have like the classic size. A lot of people that typically will have something like that, they'll probably stick similar to that, because people already have those things, kind of an easy transition. So really think about it. Think of the customer that's going to be getting it. Think about what they already have. Think about their lifestyle. Will this fit in with it? Will it be kind of awkward for them? All of those things are important, and it'll help you figure out your binding, your size, the type of cover you want it to be, all of those things. And if you are interested in just getting some of those ideas organized out of your head, definitely make sure you click on the link down below in the description. I have a free product creation planner. It goes through the 6 P's of product creation. It really just kind of helps you organize the thoughts, the ideas, and kind of take it into just one central place where you can start to really get a feel for what all needs to go into creating this product. So make sure you check that out down below, as well as there's a ton of other amazing links down there too that can help you guys to get started. Lots of resources, classes, and tons of things like that. So once you have some of the looks together for the outside of the planner, I think naturally it's kind of like, okay, let's progress to the inside of the planner. So really going back to that same thing I was saying about who is using this product. Who is going to be using this from day to day to help them stay accountable and whatever it might be? Really ask yourself that question, because getting into the inside pages is really important for that. And so when you're thinking about, okay, if you're creating a planner, there's going to be a lot of things in there. You're going to have weekly pages, possibly monthly pages, maybe a daily page. You know, if it's a daily planner, you might have a couple of things in the beginning of the planner. You might have note pages or planning pages, or just a lot of different things. All planners come in different styles and have different features and things like that, and that will all be dictated by who's using it. But you really want to figure out what exactly do you want to go in this. And so my biggest suggestion, this is something I tell all of my clients that I work with. This is also something that I've shared with the ladies in the Handmade Planner Masterclass that have been in there as well. It's important to figure out what is the concept of this planner and what's going to be on the pages. Come up with an outline. What is the order of these things? How is it going to take place within the planner? And most importantly, sketch it out. So start to kind of draw some ideas of how you want your prompt page to look if it's a journal, or how you want your weekly page to look. The things that you know are going to keep repeating throughout your planner. Really figure out like, okay, what is this layout going to be? And this is before you've even gotten on the computer, done any design work. This is all just strictly pen and paper in your head, sketching it out so that you can start to get an idea of how you want this thing to look, and it makes it so much easier when you get ready to design it. So once you've gotten the concept and you've kind of figured out like, okay, I know I want to have a page that has affirmations on it that they get maybe every 10 days in the planner. And then I know that I want to have 4 note pages in order after this page. And if you kind of get what I'm saying, like you want to get the flow of the planner. Once you have that together, then that is when I personally, myself, this is how I do my design process. That is when I would start to do the design process. And so for me, programs, I love using Adobe. I'm an Adobe girl. There are a lot of other programs out there, and I never want to tell anybody not to use what they are comfortable with and what they love. I'm just sharing what I personally use and have been using for years. And so Adobe is my thing. I love Adobe InDesign and Adobe Illustrator. That is kind of the 2 that I use when it comes to any of my just binded products, my notebooks, my planners, journals, all of those things like that. And the reason being for that is because it's kind of an industry standard. It's professional. It's pretty, the files are pretty much recognized everywhere. So if you are working with a company, for example, they can accept an InDesign file, or they can accept an Illustrator file or EPS file, things like that, that can really help them to get it to the highest quality for you, make any changes needed on their end, and different things like that. And it just sets it up for success. As well as I've found that InDesign in particular is really great for just kind of getting things set up for you for cutting purposes, because it is kind of like a document-based type program. It's for a longer form type of design, so it's perfect for journals and planners because there's going to be multiple pages repeating throughout this thing. So it has a place for you to actually put your little cut marks in there when you're printing it out. Especially, this is very crucial if you're going to be doing this at home yourself and cutting it, to have those crop marks on there so you can see where to cut is just, it's love, okay? It's amazing. So I think that's another great reason to do it as well. And I've had a lot of clients that have used Canva as a great example of this, to design something. They kind of come to me and they're like, hey, I need some help with just kind of getting my ideas organized and launching this thing. And a lot of times we end up switching from Canva to InDesign. What I have found, and I know Canva is an amazing program, they're always making constant updates, and so this can change at any point. But one of the things I've noticed is sometimes it's not the easiest when it's time to go print, especially if you're working with a company. A lot of times margins can just be kind of difficult and they're a little bit off. I know I use Canva on a pretty consistent basis every week for more so like quick graphics and things like that. And one thing is, I think they could definitely improve on like doing margins and stuff a little bit better. I think that that's something that they probably will make even better in the future, and it might already be there. Maybe I'm just not aware of it. But I've found that it's just a lot easier when you are doing something like this in InDesign, and it's easier. And I've seen this firsthand from people that have actually decided to go with a Canva file, then send it over to a printer that they're working with of some sort, and then they're kind of like confused, or the file is not coming through the right way, and just a lot of different things. And so that is just my personal opinion and suggestion for you. But the important thing is to find a program that you're comfortable with, that you can design it in, and that is going to give you the capabilities to do what you need to do. Now, me personally, I learned how to use these programs by taking some courses online, nothing super crazy, and just from trial and error. I kind of got the basics down, got the 101 of just how to know like what are the basic buttons I need to get this going. I always tell everybody it's really just going to be text, lines, and shapes. Those are the main three things that you are going to find in a journal or a planner of any sort. And so if you can figure out those three things, then you can pretty much start with that as your skeleton, and then you can get all of the fancy bells and whistles and add in graphics and change your fonts and all of that stuff. But just knowing those basic things to get started will really take you a long way when you are starting to kind of take your sketch and turn it into the actual file that you want to have. And maybe you decide you don't want to design it, but I always empower you guys, and I've said this in many videos before, I think it does not hurt to learn this skill. And if you are able to design it, it's always a lot quicker for you to do changes and things yourself, especially in the future if you decide you want to run it again, or if you want to do other reprints but you have to make changes, you can do that yourself without having to pay someone a little bit of extra and waiting on them to do it. So those are just some things to consider. But either way, once you get to this phase, it's really fun because it's starting to really bring the product to life. This can also sometimes be one of the more overwhelming parts. I remember for me, when I was designing the Live, Love, Inspire planner, I just remember feeling very overwhelmed at this part. I had sketched everything out. I knew what I wanted it to look like, but it just started to become more real as I started designing the pages and laying everything out and putting it together. It was just like, wow, this is really happening. You know, this is a really exciting moment. And you kind of almost start to just get this, like, at least for me, like this rush of just like wanting to finish and hurry up so that I could get it freaking printed so I could be holding the actual thing. And that is actually what gets me into my last point that I wanted to share with you guys. And this is to just get organized and get to the sample. That is the biggest thing I can say. So especially if you are deciding that you want to design it yourself, which I know you have it in you, so many people will just automatically tell me like, yeah, I don't have time for that, or yeah, I'm not artistic at all. And then I've sat down with some women and we've gone through and I've shown them how to use the programs, and then they end up creating these amazing things on their own. So never count yourself out on that. But it's nothing like holding your product for the first time after you've handmade it, after you've gotten it created, or whatever the case is. It's nothing like that feeling of holding it. And so just kind of always have that as the finish line for you. So if you are feeling overwhelmed at any point in this process, if you are feeling just kind of like, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't do this, doubting yourself, whatever it may be, always just think about the finish line. You are going to be holding it in your hand and it is going to be real. There is no better feeling. I promise you, this has happened so many times for me. I think the biggest one though was my planner, I have to say, because it just was so much love that went into it, so many tears, so much anxiety, so much fear went into this product. And so then when I finally held the thing, I remember when I was binding it and kind of doing like the last little steps to get it together, I was shaking, y'all, because I just couldn't believe that I was getting ready to be finished with it and I was going to be holding it for the first time. And it just was like, oh my, it was just mind blowing. So just get to your sample is basically what I'm saying. So don't allow things to happen. There's going to be technical issues. There's going to be moments where you're like, oh, I don't know what order I want the page to be. don't let that stop you. Just move on to the next step and you can come back later, especially if you're working with a tight timeline. You don't want to sit on this for too much longer. You really want to be taking daily actions every day so that you can get to this sample, okay? So that is pretty much it. I just wanted to share that with you guys, give you some more tips for things to get started when it comes to deciding that you are ready to launch a planner, or you're ready to launch a notebook, or whatever the case is. It can be a lot. There's a lot of moving parts, but it's so worth it in the end when you get to that sample, okay? And we'll talk a lot more about once you get to that sample and launching tips and things like that in the next video. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye.